Alright guys, thanks for joining us today. This is Montana Dan, and we've got another product review for you today. Today I'm going to show you, and we're going to review the UTG PRO POI rings. POI stands for Precision Optics Interface, and these are a really economical Picatinny style set of rings, and I came across these actually on Amazon. I'm just looking for something cheap to set up on one of my older rifles. And I gotta say, these things really impressed me. The set that I originally ordered were the mediums, and they ended up being a little too tall. So I contacted the company, had them exchanged for a set of lows, and the lows just showed up. And so I thought, what the heck? Let's show YouTube land what a great set of rings these are. I picked these up off of Amazon. I believe they were $45 with my Prime membership, no shipping or anything like that. And I'm thoroughly impressed. They may have been $49, but anyway, regardless, they're less than 50 bucks, and I'm thoroughly impressed with these. So let's open these up. Let's take a look here, and we'll show you what they come in, how they come packaged. So once you open up the box, you're going to get a nice little card here, and you can read this. Says they're precision manufactured, and they'll take a beating. It says they'll work up with 50 caliber type rifles. And you can see here, if I can get this to focus, precision machined inner ring surface. One thing that I really like about these rings is this flush fitting locking side plate with dual spring loaded guide rods. That's actually a really neat concept, and I'll explain why later. So let's get that out of the way. Let's take a look at these rings. This is exactly how they come shipped, and you know, it's not like a set of Sea Kings or anything like that, but they're pretty nice. They're not rattling around in here or anything like that. I did see that one of the tabs here, these are just little fold-up tabs, is busted off, but they're separated, so they're not really scratched up or anything like that. And this is pretty much what you get. This is the UTG Pro ring. Really nice machining, no real sharp edges or anything like that, and ultimately really nice finish. I'll do another video here in just a little bit, and we'll show you mounting these up, and I'll probably lap these just to see what kind of surface contact we get. But overall, very pleased. The one thing that you'll notice here is that it's got this little half Picatinny bar rail in the base here, and I was a little concerned about that when I first received these. The first set, I actually, I put them on the gun, mounted them up, and realized that they were too high. But I'll tell you what, they machined it really well. There is no slop in these rings, and I'll show you that here in just a moment. So let's go take these over into my other shop, and we'll get these mounted up onto a gun so that I can kind of show you a little bit what we're talking about. But that's the ring itself in a nutshell. They're very well built. They're very heavy duty, and for 50 bucks, I don't think there's a better product out there. So let's take these over to the other shop. We'll get them mounted up, so stay tuned. Okay, we're back, and here we are. We've got the rings, and we're going to install these on a Tikka T3. You guys may have seen some of my other videos with this gun, but this is a build that we've got going on here. And I've got one kind of installed already on the Picatinny rail, and then the other one I've got just here. I wanted to show you what I was talking about earlier. So you can see kind of, let's see if I can get the camera to focus here. There we go. You can see that this has two dual spring loaded guide rods inside there, and that's what keeps this spring loaded tension on the clasp here. And I'll tell you what, I think that's just a really fantastic idea. It's very nifty. It allows you to only use one screw, kind of a larger screw, to really suck these down tight, and the guide rods prevent this from twisting or turning in any direction, so that it tightens down evenly across this entire surface. Whereas if you have two screws, you might get a little bit of tension more on one side than the other. So I've got this one mounted up here, and as I mentioned earlier in the other video, there's that half bar in there. But I'll tell you what, I've mounted a lot of different rings and a lot of different Picatinny style rings on Picatinny bases over the years, and my favorite are the Sea Kings. That's probably my go-to set of rings, and the reason being is there's very little slop in the rings when they're actually mounted onto the Picatinny base. There's very little, very little movement fore and aft on the rail once you get them mounted on there. And that's what I think is so great about these set of rings that are half the cost of the Sea Kings, is that if you'll notice here, so there is tension on these. I've got it tightened down. You can see just a little bit of movement there. It's not locked down tight, but what I want to show you is that I'm going to move this forwards and backwards, and there's very little movement. I'm actually moving it right now, so I'm going to stop talking for a second so you can hear it. That's how little a movement there is in these rings once they're on there. And again, you know, I'll even back this out just a little bit more so you can see what I'm talking about. Fore and aft, there's very little movement in these things. I mean, obviously there's movement this way because I don't have it tightened down, but fore and aft, trying to slide my fingers forward and backwards, there's probably a thou of movement in there, and that just tells me that that crossbar, this piece here, is machined very well. The tolerances are very close to the gap in the Picatinny rail, and so there's just very little movement. So again, if you pop this one on there, and if we tighten that down, you'd see that there's very little movement again in these rings. So overall, a great set of rings for the price. So let's get these tightened down, and we will lap them, and we'll see what kind of surface contact we get. All right, we've got our lapping bar set up. As you can see here, we've got them mounted in the rings, and this isn't going to be an instructional video on how to necessarily lap the rings, but I'm just going to show you how I've got it set up here. Might do a little fast forward speed through video of actually getting these rings lapped, and then we'll show you the results. Here, and I'm going to go in and get these cleaned up so you can see them a little bit better, but you can see there that I've lapped these to about 80 to 90% contact, which took about 10 minutes. So overall, I'm very pleased just looking at these. It looks like it's very consistent. There was a little bit of a high spot on this edge here, and then also just right there. But overall, without those high spots, I mean, I'm already looking at probably without the lapping, there was a good 60 to 70% contact on the scope rings. So I'm very pleased with that. That's just obviously the top ones there, and we'll pull out the bottom ones, get this all cleaned off, and we'll come back and show you what it looks like there. So stand by. Okay, we've got the rings all cleaned up, and we'll take a look here and I'll show you. Put this camera down here. And not mounted yet, but as you can see, we've got really good contact there. See if we can get this to focus a little bit better. So very happy. It took only about 10 minutes to lap these to get, you know, that 80-90% contact, which is really good. You know, usually it'll take me, you know, anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes to do a standard set of rings. This has got a little bit less contact here. You can see where there's a low spot in this particular bottom base ring, and then also on the high one here. And that's okay. That's, you know, we still have got quite a bit of contact there. I would say that's 75 to 80%. And I've got these matched up on the front of the scope. So that's typically where I'll set a set of rings that doesn't have as much contact. I like to have the one in the back that has the most contact. So that's okay. That's completely acceptable. And I'm pretty happy with that. So, you know, for a set of rings that are cost, you know, between 45 and 49 bucks, that's a really good deal. So let's get these mounted up, and we'll show you what they look like when they're mounted. Okay, so we've got the scope mounted up, and it's not tightened down or anything like that yet. But what I've done so far is just kind of get them generally in the right place. You'll notice here, where I'm pointing with the screwdriver, there's a reasonably sizable gap between the top and bottom half of the rings on both the front and back. And that's okay. You know, a set of Sea Kings rings, this gap's going to be much smaller. But realistically, it's not a big deal as long as the gap size is consistent on the front and back, and also the other side. So you can kind of see there a little bit, the light's not great, that I've got the gaps about consistent. So now I'm going to go ahead and get the reticle and everything all leveled up, and we'll get this thing mounted up. But overall, that's kind of what they look like on the gun. Again, very pleased with these UTG POI Pro mounts. You know, for 45 bucks, 49 bucks, that's a steal. I don't really think there's a better set of rings out there. So thanks for tuning in. We'll get this mounted up. Again, these are the UTG Pro rings from UTG, and enjoy. I hope you had this video. If you have any questions, comments, post them in the comments below, and we'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.